welcome to Three Men Talking Fantasy Football, and in this case, two lovely gentlemen.
And
I
one will
am.
be one will be joining us shortly.
We'll be joining us shortly. I'm Bill DeClusis. I'm here with Mr. Tom Lang. How are you doing, Mr. Lang?
I'm doing wonderful. How you doing?
I am all right. I'm ready to talk some Week 13 waivers. Quite a lot to get into here, and I imagine I could already see some areas in which we're going to have some strife and some discord. So we'll jump right in.
Mm-hmm.
So let's jump right into some running backs. As always, we start with the probably owned, but if available, go make some moves, go pick them up category. Right at the top of that list is Bucky Irving, starting running back for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I won't hear it otherwise. Unbelievable day. It doesn't matter to me whatever is going on with Rachaad White. He's great.
Yep.
To me, they've entered into David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs. Not as good, but play them both territory.
Yeah, I mean, I'd say, I mean, I'm not sure if you watched the game fully, but Bucky Irving looked fantastic. He was running the ball. He was super explosive. He was elusive. He was getting out of the backfield. He was breaking tackles, and and then White didn't really have the same kind of move, kind of running game. Irving really stood out. He unfortunately was stopped twice on the 1 yard line, which actually, instead of going to White, it went to was it Tucker is the third guy back there?
The vulture.
Yeah, so basically he vultured 2 touchdowns over there, which was, very, very hurting for the Irving owners. But he definitely had a great game, and I think that he right now is basically 80% owned, overall, and there's 20%. He should be 100% rostered now. Next is at Carolina, and
after is Las Vegas.
Yeah, so it's a great lineup right now for Bucky Irving, and obviously same thing with White, but Bucky Irving is definitely a hot topic right now.
Two other names in the probably owned category. We've got Jaylen Warren, who we've been talking about week after week after week, finally
Yep.
goes and has a great game. And I don't care how much snow it was, it really was an awesome game by him. And then, of course, Rico Suave. So he finally had a decent game. You can't deny it. He had a decent game. And the Cowboys
It was
magically looked okay against
yeah,
Washington.
it was a very surprising game. I mean, I would not have expected the Cowboys to actually, well, first off, win that game. But to be competitive, I mean, their defense really stepped up. That was the prime factor right there. The defensive game, which gave the opportunity for the offense to, run the ball a little bit more smartly, basically make some better little dink and dunk passes and get Cooper Rush a little bit more active in the passing game, not making so many mistakes. So, I was not expecting the defense, basically them to actually play that well against, the Commanders or the Redskins, whoever you want to call them. But, yeah,
I got a question for you, just like semi related to fantasy football.
Mhm.
Crazy fourth quarter, the last 5 minutes, whatever it was.
Insane.
When Washington goes to I think it was 27, and then I think it was the McLaurin, the big play to McLaurin.
Yeah, the 90
and they
yard
go and they're
touchdown.
down by one. Would you have gone for two?
With that momentum, yeah, I probably would have, especially how the Dallas defense was playing that day. I probably would have just said, let's go for it. Because there were so many things that happened in that last couple seconds that, just really destroyed that game. I mean, that kick, I mean, they were even talking about the kicker for 50 plus yards. Even that's what, we're talking about an extra point, but he just hasn't been with Seibert, right?
Yes.
He's a kicker. He had a great game against the Giants early in the season. Then he's like kind of been on and off. So they should have went for the win. Should have went for two. That would have really streaked them for the next couple games. So yeah, I mean, it's an unfortunate situation, but that's football. That's football.
Yeah, we were quickly mentioning just to tie the bow on Rico. So make of Rico Suave what you will, but his next matchup is home against the New York Giants, who basically, like we just said, just got decimated by every Tampa Bay running back. So
Yeah.
if you, it, not saying it's top 10, but you could do worse.
Yeah, I mean,
Um,
and I will say the divisional games though too, like it
that's
could be a
true.
tough, those divisional games is where like, people start cracking in and start playing hard-nosed football. I mean, the Steelers and the Browns game was, pretty much a heavy defensive game until like, some broken plays started happening. Nick Chubb started crossing the goal line twice. He started looking more like a Nick Chubb from last year and the years prior. And it helps when, you're force fed the ball, like he was. And, against a stingy Steelers defense, it was surprising how well he did. But yeah, so yeah.
Yep. Let's move into some more widely owned running backs, and this is where we get into some interesting information. By the way, we should quickly mention. So we are recording this on Monday evening ahead of the Monday Night Football game between Baltimore and the LA Chargers. So some of those guys are not exactly affecting a lot of these ad drop decisions. We'll kind of make a note here or there where somebody might pop in. For example, we'll touch upon maybe tight ends and to some degree wide receivers later, involving some of those players. So just keep that in mind. We're trying to get ahead a little bit this week, considering the Thanksgiving holiday.
Hmm.
But
And
going
just remember, yeah, and just to let everybody know, we are going to be dropping a second video this week and moving forward.
exactly.
Billy, you want to explain that?
Yes. So now we're gonna be moving to 2 shows a week. We'll continue to hit the waivers like we always had. And our second show, we're gonna have a forecast show. We'll talk about all the games. We'll talk about all the relevant players. We'll get into must starts. We'll get into sits, and we'll get into our perspectives on the games.
Yeah,
Give you
sorry, the good thing is obviously it is perspective of fantasy, but obviously this is going to open a door for other people talking about betting and those elements, so we can actually do a little bit more deep dive, so you guys can make some solid bets for the week. And again, just nothing with that. We just want to thank everybody for subscribing and sharing our podcast and being a part of the community. And if anybody can, you guys can really continue to share, subscribe. If you're watching it, we have a lot of views on the videos. If you guys could really subscribe, that'd be really helpful for our podcast.
well, let me tell you something that I'm not going to bet on is a continued continued fantasy dominance of Amir Abdullah. Um, to me, he was a product of necessity. The guys ahead of him were down. He ended up with a really great day. I won't take it away from him. He's widely available. I'm sure a lot of people are going to go pick him up. To
Hmm.
me, I think it's fool's gold. You're going to be wasting a waiver priority, especially when the guys come back and he's at Kansas City this coming week,
Well,
who's been destructive against all running backs.
I will say, this is actually one that I do want to talk about because we did talk
Sure.
about him last week, and we did talk about specifics on weeks of that you could use Amir Abdullah. This week there's no buys. Next week you have another buy apocalypse. So it's going to be an opportunity to try to find some players. He is definitely a player that is on the list to potentially be a flex play. For the next couple of weeks. And my
I
reasoning,
strongly disagree. Go ahead.
I know
Yeah,
you do, I
convince
know
me.
you do, but my perspective of it is because of the new quarterback situation with Aiden O'Connell. Minshew he broke his collarbone.
Clavicle. Right.
He's out for the season. Aiden is a dink and dunk throw play. They're going to be playing from behind. They're playing heavy profiled offenses. They're going to be some dump offs to Amir Abdullah. He's nobody else in the backfield right now. He's definitely a spot start, I think, for the next couple weeks. He is widely unowned. He's an opportunity. He's going to be a heavy target for everybody this week. I would recommend putting him on your roster. If you need to start him, you can start him. But I don't, you probably don't need to start him this week. But next week and the following weeks, I would probably look at his schedule and his roster. If especially if one of the guys comes back, if Zamir White comes back, or or Alexander Madison comes back. They're different style of running backs. Amir Abdullah has been doing it. He's been a streaky player on and off for the past couple of years. I would recommend just rostering him and just, he's kind of like in a sense like He's not a
You
Swiss
would
arm.
burn waiver priority to pick up Amir Abdullah.
If you need it, yeah, I would do it right now.
All right, let's point out just real quick. So this coming week he's at Kansas City, which
Hmm.
yeah, it's I know you or I are not about to argue that's a good matchup. I agree. Next 2 weeks, uh, at Tampa Bay, and then the week after they're home versus Atlanta. Not the best matchups, not the worst matchups. However, I I will agree with you with one
And I
point that
think,
what you made
and
of.
I think Atlanta does come back and starts, being a little bit more high profiled on offense and better defense wise, after the spy. So, you know,
I I agree with you.
mhm,
I don't. I'm saying that I think it's a lot of it is dependent on Madison and White.
mhm.
We don't have to beleaguer the issue. I mean, considering how bad running back waivers have been for the last umpteen amount of weeks, and if you're really scrounging, like to your point, Tommy, if you really need some help, I guess you could do a lot worse than that for somebody who's really widely available. But maybe the fact that he performed so well causes him to move up the depth chart, get some more touches in and of itself. So
Yeah, and I see that too. Um, yeah, no,
I
for sure.
yeah,
Oh,
I would say considering the situation, there's a guy we have on our list right now that I would way rather spend waiver priority on. That's Jeremy McNichols.
yeah,
So I
I kind of would teeter out. If you need a running back, spot start running back, you need an RB2 because of buys and not this week, but well, actually this week because McNichols is probably going to only have
right,
this week as it because Eckler and Robinson are both most likely
potentially they
out.
could both be out. Right,
Yeah, so and McNichols has had a pretty decent game this year two times, I think. And it was when the injuries happened. He was basically at backup. Um, so and he fits that mold of that offense as well too. So he's a quick guy. He is hard nosed. He runs up the gut a little bit, but he's more of an outside little dump off kind of running back. Um, so I definitely so I would profile McNichols this week as the target for this week's games, but then Amir Abdul has a little bit more value as the season goes on into the playoff picture. Um,
I could agree with that point. So Jeremy McNichols, I'd be willing to bet that Eckler and Robinson are both out this week,
yep.
considering Robinson's injury and Eckler had a bad concussion, his second of the year. So this week they're home against Tennessee,
Yep.
who, if whatever good defense that they had is really kind of starting to fall apart the last couple weeks. After this week, Washington's on a bye, so I would imagine coming out the
And
bye,
and
Eckler
I
and
think
potentially Robinson will be back in it. So this is a 1 week. If you need a guy,
and I
lock
think
and
the
load.
Commanders, and honestly, I think the Commanders are going to come back with vengeance. I mean, I think it just got embarrassed by Dallas. They should not have lost that game. I think they're going to come out with vengeance, start throwing the ball. They're going to beat up on Tennessee. Tennessee, they have a decent defense. They've been getting weaker as the season goes on. Um, and I think that Cliff Kingsbury is going to manhandle that defense of scheme. Um,
Could
on an
be.
offensive perspective. My one thing I just kind of wanted to talk real quick. I know we're going to go on
Sure.
to another player, but what is up with the the Broncos backfield? Like uh,
Uh, it's
Jav
the Sean Payton
Javante
experience.
Williams. Well, Javante Williams, he had 8 carries for -2 yards. Like
So
that
we
is a
went from
stat line.
right, and then you had the whole Estime Fab
Yeah, I mean,
situation that
but
everybody
like I
screwed
think
up.
the only one that actually had a decent game was Jameel McLaughlin. I mean,
Right.
but again, it was also against the Raiders. Like it's such a weird suspect backfield. Like, if you had a spot start, like, would you even think about starting one of those guys
Javante
over?
Williams.
Well, yeah,
Yeah.
but would you think about starting him over, like, say, Amir Abdullah or like um a
Oh,
Jerry McNichols? Like, I don't know if I
not
can.
this week.
Yeah,
Not definitely over Amir Abdullah, but not Jeremy McNichols. Like we just said, Jeremy McNichols is gonna he's in a perfect position for a great play this
yeah.
week. Um, I I mean, we know Sean Payton for years and years. He pulls this kind of stuff. I mean, it goes farther back than the Kamara Ingram stuff. I mean, it goes way far. Like that three, four running backs, Pierre Thomas and Deuce McAllister, et cetera, et cetera. This is how he rolls. I don't know if there's this doghouse thing anymore. I mean, I heard that thing with Javonte Williams. I just think it's just he rolls with whoever happens to be there. By the way, we should mention how well Bo Nix is playing.
Yeah.
It's not in Sean Payton's interest to care about which running back is getting rolling or X amount of touches
It's
or
yeah,
whatever.
it's who's making his quarterback, look
Look
good. It's
better,
basically
right?
it's what it
Better,
is.
better blocking. Plus, with a
And we
quarterback who's got legs like that, right?
and we did talk about it too with, we were Bo Nix, they're going to play to Bo Nix's to be more balanced for him to be more consistent every single week, week in and week out, who is the better pass protector for certain elements. Like those are the things that I think they're looking for. And unfortunately, it's not fantasy relevant. And I personally would stay away from any backfield when it comes any backfield player for the Broncos right now. Um, I know. I mean, I own Javonte Williams in multiple leagues. I own what you call it, Audric Estime in multiple leagues as well after picking him up. I just can't start him. I can't start him over even when Isaiah Pacheco comes back potentially this week. I can't start
I
him.
wouldn't play him either.
What I'm saying is I can't start any of those players over a Kareem Hunt
Right.
who's gonna get touches away taken away from Pacheco coming back. So I mean I'd rather play a Kareem Hunt even though he had a crap game this week against you know the Panthers. It's tough. It's a tough experience. So I would stay away. Go away, Broncos. Don't if you got to start them, you're saying a couple prayers before your week starts.
So this coming week they're home against Cleveland. Make of it what you will. Even Jalen Warren had a good game against them in the rain and snow. So make of it what you will. I'm probably a little less doom and gloom about it than you are, but I kind of agree with the thrust of what you're saying.
Yeah.
Um, Last name to mention on the docket for running backs, which again, like we've already mentioned in the past, like it's so many guys are just staying healthy. Slash, that's why there's not so many running backs to talk about. But just we've had him on the list before. So Roshan Johnson,
Yep.
still widely available. I think as a backup, quote unquote backup running back, he's another one who's a good spot start if you need it. He tends to be the goal line guy. He gets a lot of work, and the Chicago's offense does seem to be looking better than the
Yeah.
doldrums it was a couple weeks ago.
I do my have I'm a little I know I said last week that I would guaranteed a touchdown. That was my target. Um, he did score his touchdown, um, but he only had two rushing attempts for 2 yards. So he is the goal line guy. He had one
Right.
reception for 10 yards. It's tough. It's just kind of like, he's not your RB2 on a bye week. He's maybe your flex two. If you have two flexes, he's maybe your flex two. Um, you can't feel confident starting him. You're hoping for a touchdown. And like I said
Right.
last week, where we were just talking about, making some of these plays down the field. When it comes down to hopefully a flag gets thrown, or a guy gets stopped on the 1 yard line, and this guy's going to come running up and he's going to run through that wall. Like that's basically what happened
But
this
I
week
mean,
against Minnesota.
if you're looking for a spot start, I mean, that's the kind of praying that you're doing
Not,
anyway.
yeah, I
And
mean, yeah, but not this week. I mean, you don't need the spot start him this week. I mean, you might need to start him,
some other week.
week 14.
I'll say
But
this though, I've mentioned before, if I'm the Swift owner, there's no reason that I don't have Roshan Johnson on
no,
my
no, you have
roster.
to manage. He's your handcuff right now,
Right.
because he has flashes of greatness as well. He could play the same way as Swift does. He's not as elusive as him, but he does fit the model of basically a running back for the Chicago Bears.
Yes, I agree. Um, let's quickly mention before we move on. So obviously, like we said about the Baltimore Chargers game. So again, pending on what happens, right now, just a quick name to mention. So guys like Gus Edwards and some of the backup running backs for Baltimore are pretty widely available.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, I think that they are just incumbent upon injuries happening to the starters, Dobbins and Henry, before they become relevant. That being said, Justice Hill is a nice option when Baltimore is down. Problem is
Yeah,
Baltimore is never down.
yeah.
So
but he's also a good plug and play because he's in on third down, third and seven, third and eight, third and long, like those aspects. Like when say he could be second and 15 because of penalties. He's in there over a Derrick Henry, a healthy Derrick Henry. So he has value. He's on the field. He's getting snaps. He's getting targets. He's getting his plays. And if Lamar Jackson is not dumping the ball off down the field 20, 30 plus yards, he's going to dump it off a little short. He's going to try to get, or he's going to take it himself. But that's going to give the opportunity for Justice Hill basically to, keep getting, some opportunities. He has in the past 3 weeks, 9 targets, which is not a lot, 9 targets for 6 receptions, 28 yards, and 11 touches, basically, and sorry, 4 touches for 11 yards rushing. So it's not crazy. You're not like oohing and ahhing on these numbers, but you're talking about opportunity.
Right. Yeah. I mean, that's all we're saying about a lot of
Yep.
these guys. I mean, we're not spending too much time talking about everything because everything it comes down to opportunity with the backs. Which ones? Which why kind of like to me, McNichols is hands down the best pickup of the week for running back,
Yep.
especially if you just need 1 week to get it going. Um, so yeah. So any other names you want to bring up before we move on?
No, I think we're pretty good with those. I mean, outside of tonight's game, I would keep an
Yeah.
eye on Gus Edwards. I think he's going to get a little bit more a couple more touches this week than he did last week. It just depends on what he does with them.
Right.
I think that Dobbins is, he obviously been the clear cut back. There's been a lot of talk about, a lot of chatter throughout the season. Can he stay healthy? And he's been playing pretty well, But if something happens with Dobbins, next man up is not Vidal. It is Gus Edwards.
Right. Much to my chagrin, it's not Kamani Vidal Sassoon
No, no, it's not.
that. All right.
However
So
you want to
let's
call
all right. So let's bring up some wide receivers here. So we've got 4 names in the probably owned category, 2 of which I know you have thoughts on, and 2 of which I have some thoughts on. So we've got Jamison Williams, about 80% owned, various different leagues.
them. Yeah,
Star wide receiver for the Detroit Lions.
star wide receiver.
He's doing it. I'll let you
Yeah,
poop all over him in just a second.
well, I
Let me
mean,
just
it's not a poo poo. I will say this. I mean, what I got to say about there's three guys that I really need to put in the same category. You want me to do it now, or you want to finish what you're saying?
I just let me just get through the
You
names
got
of
it.
the probably owned, and then I'll let you. All right. So the 3 other names to mention: Jordan Addison, wide receiver for the Vikings, been 70-80% owned. Jacoby Myers, the only other pass catcher in Las Vegas, even remotely worth talking about. He had another nice game, and then Judge Judy, which I have some thoughts about that. But let you unleash. Go ahead.
All right. So I personally believe, based on the past couple weeks, again, I am not an MVS believer until this week he does it again.
Okay.
But I honestly believe these 3 players are the same category. Now they are great players, right? They have big shiny moments, but they have also had donut shot moments week in, week out. Jordan Addison, Jamison Williams, and MVS, I believe, are the biggest boom or the biggest bust wide receivers to be picked up right now. Now, Jameson Williams is widely owned, and same thing with Addison to a point. Addison did get dropped, probably about what 15 to 20% the past week or so. Um, but the same thing sometimes happens with Jameson Williams. So they're like those streaky drop, add drop kind of players. MVS is the highest value right now coming off the bye. He's what 15% owned? Was it
We've got
16% owned?
16 in ESPN,
Yeah.
36 in Sleeper.
So value wise, MVS has the same value, I believe, of a Jamison Williams and a Jordan Addison. Now, that's really not saying much. It's not a comfortable start week in and week out. There are a lot of guys that, basically have been sitting Jordan Addison in their roster pretty much the entire year. They drafted him, in the 6th, 7th round. sometimes some people drafted him sooner. I think his ADP was like 6, 7 or something like that. It's like in the mid 6th round. Um, you know, they are the same caliber and player. Boom, they're going to get you 25 plus points. Bust, they're going to get you zero or maybe negative points. Who knows? So I'm a little nervous about those guys, but they are must owns. Bye weeks, you have to play them. If you need, say if you're, you're going in, they say if Jameson Williams, Jordan Addison, or MVS are on your roster, and you have a flex play, and you have a guy that's basically could be like a Debo Samuel. He's a little shifty right now. You don't know what you're going to get out of him. He had a really terrible week this past week. I mean, obviously the whole offense just looked terrible. Um, but if you need a boom play because you're down by 20 points and you can't depend on a Debo Samuel, unfortunately, right now, you might want to plug in one of those guys. And then they,
So
they, they could be a game, a week winner for you.
so I don't classifying as boom or bust. I would slightly push back. Let's just take a look at Addison real quick. Okay,
Mhm.
last 4 games. All right, I'll just give you stat lines. Okay, 5 for 5, 42 and a touchdown. 3 games ago wasn't so good. 2 catches for 25 yards on 5 targets. That was bad. But then he goes 3 catches, 61 yards for a touchdown. And this past week, 8 catches on 9 targets, 162 yards and a touchdown. It's 3 out of the last 4 weeks where he was a great play, great wide receiver. I think he's the way that Minnesota is throwing the ball and the way that Kevin McCarthy's drawing up plays. Darnold's is throwing way more that like it, they're really airing it out and they're making a focus of it. And I think Aaron Jones is kind of starting to slow down if you watch the games.
Mhm.
Um, and so that's Addison. Now, if you want to lump Jameson Williams into the boomer bust category, I'll say I generally agree with you. That being said, we got Amon-Ra St. Brown who got dinged up in the last game. You've got the Lions who are basically destroying every single team in front of them and they're not willing to stop throwing the ball no matter how far they're up or no matter what part of the game that they're in. Obviously, yes, we're not saying that they should not be owned or whatever. I think that the way that you should be playing fantasy football is you go for the win. Um, and so I don't see how you could possibly sit a player like Jameson Williams unless you've got some real consistency ahead of him. I will
Well,
grant you. I'll say this though, the MVS thing. I'll say it's a perfectly valid criticism that you have. But if it does happen a third time in a row, I mean, round the bases at that point. But
yeah, no, I hear you with that. I mean, right now, I mean, the next player, another player that I would like to talk about is Nick Westbrook-Akina. Um,
yes, can we save that just
yeah,
quickly once we jump into the more widely available? So yeah, we just quickly mentioned it. So Jacoby Myers, Tommy and I are not going to have any disagreement on him. He's a great player. He's in an awful offense, but he gets targets. He gets it done. He's the only other
Aiden
pass catcher
and
other than
Aiden
Bowers,
Aiden O'Connell is familiar with
and he's.
Jacoby Myers as well.
We don't even know if Aiden O'Connell's necessarily going to be quarterback, do we? Or is that well
He
established
he
at this point?
he was established that he's the quarterback. I don't think they have anybody else, unless
The ghost of
uh
Desmond Ritter.
oh no, unless Mr. Daniel Jones finds his way over there.
Oh, okay. I prefer it to Desmond Ritter. Yeah. Oh, I just wanted to mention. I know for Anthony's sake, just to quickly talk about Judge Judy here, Jerry Judy, for everybody doesn't know who we're talking about. So, um, yes, we're both of the opinion that Jerry Judy and Cedric Tillman are both valuable players, but I always kind of thought that Jerry Judy, once Winston took over, was going to ultimately be the guy, even though it was Tillman for a couple games in a row that was really getting the touchdowns and the big plays or whatever.
Hmm.
This past game, I think you really saw a decided change. Winston was looking for Judy way more than Njoku, way more than Tillman. He had a great game. Like we've said before and last week, Cleveland doesn't have the best schedule coming up. But if Jameis is going to throw it rain, snow, sleet, or shine, however many thousands of times a game, hopefully it's not snowing every single game. I don't see how you could not go in with Judy, bank on a whole bunch of. We talk about all the time about volume and targets. I don't see how
Yeah.
you don't roll with Judy in a situation like
I
that.
mean that game was incredible watching that. It just came down like a snow globe. It was unbelievable.
It
I
was
mean, but yeah, like you said, Denver, Pittsburgh, Kansas City, Cincinnati. I mean, they got rough schedule moving
well,
forward.
Cincinnati should be fine, but other than that, yeah, it's pretty bad.
Yeah, yeah.
All
I
right, so you
mean,
mentioned. Sorry,
yeah.
sorry.
No, no, good.
Yeah. So all right. So then let's jump into the widely available. So you want to talk about Nick Westbrook-Akine is definitely a name to talk about, and yeah, you won't have to sell me on him. I'm probably with you, but go ahead, lay out
Yeah,
the
I mean,
case.
so weeks 10 to 12, the last 3 weeks, he's the number 15th ranked wide receiver. He's 7.5% owned. In ESPN. He's only had 14 targets in 3 weeks. So it's a little lighter than we're talking about those numbers. I mean, but he does have seven more targets than an MVS. Um, he what basically what honestly what pushes MVS ahead of him is that extra touchdown.
Right.
Um, but they have the same exact yardage. 14 for 7, 7 for 5 is what MVS has, but Westbrook has 14 for 7. Um, I believe the quarterback play is a little bit better over in New Orleans than it is over in Tennessee. But Nick Westbrook Akine is getting those good inside the 20 targets, which is giving him those touchdown opportunities. He has two touchdowns in the past 3 weeks. Um, he's right now averaging 11.7 points. He is a valid flex play. Maybe if you're hurting at wide receiver, he could be a wide receiver two play. Um, I'd feel more comfortable plugging him in a flex than a wide receiver too. There should be better value on your roster, but he is definitely somebody um, that has the opportunity to make some good plays for the next couple of weeks. You got Washington, you got Jacksonville, you got Cincinnati,
That's right.
Indianapolis. You have Indianapolis, and then their final game is basically the championship game, week 17, is back at Jacksonville.
I mean, you
It's
could.
it's an it's a great lineup for the next couple weeks. Like for a player that is ranked 15th the last 3 weeks, 7.5% owned, he needs to be rostered.
I agree.
You have an opportunity. He basically can be basically a championship winner for you.
And
Um,
they're airing it out. Like
mhm.
Levis is.
They're forced to do it. And I mean, you know, basically catching 50% of his balls. I would probably say the 14 targets. Again, we talked about targets a couple weeks ago, but those 14 targets, they could be in Guam and and basically he's getting the target even if it's uncatchable. It's in his trajectory, it's in his motion to be, to potentially catch the ball, but when they're 10 to 20 feet above him, it's almost impossible. Oh, it's Mr. Anthony Perez.
Hello, hello, gentlemen.
How you doing?
Hello,
I'm
sir.
Welcome.
doing well.
Welcome to the show.
Welcome
Thank
back
you for
into the
having
show.
me.
Welcome to the show. We were just talking about Mr. Nick Westbrook Akine and how unbelievable popular he is right now at 7.5% owned.
He should be getting picked up and be putting on people's rosters, especially
Let
for a playoff run. The guy has what now, 6 touchdowns in the last 4 or 5 games?
and let's
Right.
say this. I have a question for you. If you if you had him, would he be starting every single week in your flex for the next couple weeks? Do you know what his schedule looks like for the next couple weeks?
It's a pretty good schedule.
Well, let me
Uh,
put it this way: at
Let's all,
Washington,
say it again.
at Washington, Jacksonville, Cincinnati, Indianapolis,
yeah.
Jacksonville championship. That's a league winner right there.
So I think I do agree with you, okay? But I do think it depends on the structure of your league. In
Yeah.
our league, where it's a two flex league, yes, you play him. In a one flex league, if you have obviously better options, you play them.
Again,
Um,
it's about the option. It's about the
yeah,
options you
no,
have.
and I think he's a good option going forward, especially with the remaining schedule. I do get a little bit worried that he is kind of boomer bust and TD dependent because you can remember his catches are what 3 for 89 and a touchdown or 2 for 90 yards and a touchdown.
Well,
That's the only thing that makes me nervous, but he's been consistent.
yeah, I mean, he's basically, I think he's a better play than an MVS.
I want to. Well, we'll hang on a second. Let's we get to that. Get to that. Just to even bolster that point even further. I mean, I went back basically farther than 3 games after their bye. He wasn't used at all before their bye week. After their bye weeks, that's 7 games. In that time, he's 17 for 304 and 6 touchdowns. So I kind of echo what Anthony's saying a little bit about being touchdown dependent. That being said, if they are looking for him and he's getting some of the touchdowns, it can't be ignored. And
No,
considering he did
No,
that
no,
with a worse schedule versus now, we're off to the races. Like with I mean,
I mean there is
definitely
a
a
guy.
great option.
There are two guys that we will talk about in the tight end category that are in the same kind of element of a Westbrook Akine. Um, we're not going to get to them yet, but we do need to talk about these guys because they are
We'll get
relevant.
to him.
They have to be owned.
I would
Like
say
I said,
here's a question.
sorry. Like I said, I believe that Westbrook Akine needs to be owned. He will be he should be started if you don't if you again, I would start him right now if the situation remains the same in San Francisco. I this is crazy, but I would start him over Debo Samuel.
I would too, but if Brock Purdy's the quarterback, no.
Again, if Brock Purdy is not the quarterback, then I would start Westbrook Akine
Right.
over Debo Samuel. Um,
Um, Anthony, the two guys who are Tom, whether whatever order you want to say it, the two guys that are the most that are widely owned that are at the top of our list is MVS and Nick Westbrook Akine. Which would you rather have? Who would you burn your waiver priority first for?
I'd probably go with Nick Westbrook Akine,
Okay.
only
and
because
they have and they
he is getting the touchdown factor. I got to give him credit for that. I mean, like I
well,
said,
MVS is getting a touchdown factor too. They actually have the same exact stat line. Only thing that makes the difference is MVS has one touchdown over him, which makes him a higher ranked wide receiver in the past 3 weeks. Um, what you call it, Westbrook Akine has two touches the past 3 weeks. I know he has obviously a better, past 5 weeks, 6 weeks, but consistency ratio right now, it's showing that MVS is the better ranked or a higher ranked player.
It's an interesting argument to have. We'll say that the next 2 weeks for the Saints. So next week they're playing the Giants, which like we said, that we can't get enough of pooping all over the Giants on this
That's fine. I mean, we
on
could
this
poop all
podcast.
we could poop all over the Jets too
Okay.
because
Oh,
the
oh, please,
entire
let's
well
do it.
let's just say this, the entire we won't even call them New York teams because they play in New Jersey because
That's
there's
true.
only one New York team and that's the Bills. But the New Jersey Giants and the New Jersey Jets are a shame. They
Yeah.
are they're a sham of a program. And let's move on.
Yeah,
I
great
have
for
one.
great
so
great for fantasy football targets. Yeah.
Yeah,
I
I
do
do have. Sorry.
Yeah, go ahead, Ed.
I do want to ask since I had some technical difficulties, which explains my tardiness. Did you guys go over Devon Valet yet?
No.
We'll get to him. We'll get there. Um,
I do have two
yeah, go ahead.
players that we need to discuss. I mean, obviously Valet is somebody we want to discuss, but two category. We're talking about David Moore. Is that something that could be
No,
no?
I
That's over.
complete.
I'm on board with Billy. I think that was just the way the game went, and
Fluky.
that's pretty much what he's gonna get.
I mean,
But
10 targets, six receptions, 81 yards, and a touchdown. He did get a little banged up on that play for that touchdown. Um, but and my other one I want to kind of like target as well is the Pittman injury, Josh Downs injury. Is it Alec Pierce time in Indy?
Well, it's always Alec Pierce time for Anthony Richardson, but I mean he's good for what is it? 2 catches a game for 80 yards if he actually catches them.
Yeah, but if he's the only receiver on that roster,
If Who's the other guy? He's got the cool name. Um, the other receiver.
Mo Alley
He's like
Cox,
oh,
no,
Adonai
no, no.
Mitchell, Adonai Mitchell,
Adana. What is it?
yeah, Donnie Mitchell,
Adonai Mitchell.
Is that what it is?
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
I think it's similar to that. It doesn't he hasn't he been getting a whole lot of targets? The only reason we're like so wishy washy about it is like, if Pittman's out and Downs is out, maybe take a shot at it. You know what I mean? Like what was Richardson's stat line? Was he like 11 for 39 or something? 11 for
Well,
29?
I will say this about Richardson. So I watched a little bit of the game, and he had a lot of drop, not him, but his receivers had a lot of drop balls that game. His stat line actually should have been a lot better than what it was. Um, they missed some pretty big plays too, and a couple of them got called back on penalties. But um,
Well,
go ahead.
yeah, I would say Alec Pierce is the second highest ranked target share in the past 3 weeks. The number one is obviously the aforementioned Josh Downs, who's going to be Downs for the count. Looks like for a week or two.
All right. All right.
And then the next one after, basically number three is Michael Pittman, who is also looking like he's going to be down for the count for a week or so. Um, I mean, I feel like you gotta go with the target, which is basically 15 targets in the past 3 weeks. Is Alec Pierce. Um,
Indianapolis is at New England and then on a bye.
yeah, I
So
mean,
just keep
yeah,
in mind.
you know you might
So
want to pick him up potentially if you need a flex play. He could be put up 15, close to 10 to 15 points this week.
I would say I have actually a lot more confidence. I mean, you're not going to play the Jets every week, and obviously the Jets make quarterbacks look like Tom Brady in his prime right now. But Richardson he had a touchdown pass that was dropped by Ogletree. One of his receivers, Doolin, had a 50-yard catch and did not get his feet in bounds, so that took that away. And then he had a 30-yard, 21-yard, 21-yard, and a 10-yard pass called back by penalty. So
Yeah.
he probably should have thrown for close to 300 yards again this week with a touchdown. But I have confidence in him going forward in those receivers. At first, I was a little hesitant. How would the receivers shake up in fantasy with Richardson's performance? Seems like he might have turned a new leaf though.
Yeah, I mean, he also got the wheels too. He's making better judgment calls since the benching. So I think, I mean, and there was a couple plays where he was going to get rocketed by a linebacker, and he just boop just threw the ball like there was nobody in front of him. He was able to throw the ball like 60 yards. He's got a crazy arm, but he was making
I
some
will
crazy. Yeah,
Go ahead.
no, go ahead.
I will say if I had to choose between the two, I'm probably going to choose Alec Pierce over Adonai Mitchell,
Yeah,
just because I feel like Richardson has that better rapport with him right now. And if Downs or Pittman misses any time, I think Pierce becomes definitely a startable flex play this week.
yep.
Anthony, it's funny. It's funny that you brought up. It's funny that you brought up Vele. We could probably mention him now. I'd rather have Vele over any of those wide receiver options for Indy. So let me
So
just. I'll
I
probably
agree with
be
you.
echoing exactly what you might have said. So let me just quickly mention. First of all, Vele available basically everywhere. Let me give you the last three games for Vele: 4 for 39 and a touchdown, 4 for 66, 6 for 80. And in the last game, he had 9 targets. First of all, if you just watch the game, Bo Nix seems to be getting better and better. They're throwing it more and more. We had a whole discussion before you came on, Anthony, about Sean Payton's baloney with his running backs. And I think it's more of a function
Yeah.
of just like they're kind of throwing the ball a lot more. Vele's the clear number 2 on that team.
Yep.
I think it's a good option. I don't lump him in with MVS and Westbrook Akine in our little list here, but I would rather have him than the wide receivers in Indy.
Yeah, I mean,
I think
he also has three 20+ yard receptions. He has one touchdown. I mean, when you're coming this close to catching all your balls, 18 for 14, that's really good. I mean, that's almost Tyreek Hill numbers right there. Tyreek Hill's 18 for 15. Uh, Both Tyreek Hill and Vele are basically ranked the same. In the top 24 category, you have Jameson Williams, Jalen Waddle, Jackson Smith and Jigba. You have Tyreek Hill, you have Vele, and then you have Demario Douglas. I mean, Vele's in a nice category right there with some of those prime names.
I agree. Some other quick names to mention in here a little bit lower down the list, and then I need you guys
Oh,
to.
and plus
Oh,
one more thing about Vele too is he's
okay.
got a real since he's playing. I'm pretty sure he's playing out of the slot. Um, he's got a real friendly schedule to end the year too, so that's definitely a guy. If you're looking to make a playoff push or a deep playoff run, and like I said, depending on your league format, especially in two flex leagues, that could be a guy that you throw in one of
Yeah,
those flex plays.
Yeah,
Agreed.
it could be somebody like Nick Westbrook Akina, basically kind of like same pickup option. They're very low owned, and you could maybe pick up one or even two of those guys, and you have the pick of the litter every single week for your flex.
So two other guys who are widely available. We've got Jalen Tolbert, widely available. To me, he only has value as long as CeeDee Lamb is out. Maybe I'm wrong. I'll let you guys comment. And the last name to mention of the widely owned is we've got Noah Brown, wide receiver two for Washington. Um, if you look at Noah Brown's last couple of games, I think he falls into the Tommy Lang definition of boomer bust. It's perfect definition of that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, he kind of same category as MVS and Jamison
Well,
Williams-esque
to be
kind of.
determined as MVS. We'll
Well,
find
yeah,
out.
to be determined after this week. We'll see what
Right.
happens, but I
Do you
mean,
agree with the Tolbert? Do you agree with the Tolbert situation?
I don't like Tolbert, man. I just think there's two options of passing right now, and it's not your Rico Suave. It's you got CD, who's the target one, and then basically tight end over there, Shoemaker. Shoemaker is basically, I mean, if Ferguson comes back, Ferguson's going to be the guy, but Shoemaker is the second target there. I don't like Jalen Tolbert in this, in this offense without Dak Prescott.
If
Um,
CD's out home against the Giants, are you firing up Tolbert? I mean,
no, no,
really? Still, so
no,
you feel that way? Okay.
yeah. I mean, I would honestly rather go out pick up a Keenan Coleman if he's available, and start him.
Well, while you mentioned Keon Coleman, so we've got some intelligent gentlemen here. All right, so the Buffalo we've talked. It's every other week I have this discussion. So the Buffalo Bills wide receiver situation. Um, I put down some notes here. So you guys tell me if my assessment's wrong of it. All the Bills wide receivers, they're going to be in the hey, you should probably get them on their roster, but you're never going to feel that good about starting them any particular week. And that includes Amari Cooper. Do you guys see it differently? I used to think that Amari was like the alpha among the group. Now I'm not so sure. How do you guys see their situation? Because there's probably one of them is available in somebody's league.
But I think their situation is kind of like the Chiefs situation, where at this point, it doesn't matter who gets the ball as long as they're winning games.
Yep.
I don't think there's a clear-cut favorite anymore. We'll say like, Travis Kelce was the favorite for the longest for Mahomes in Kansas City. Now he's pretty much second fiddle. I think it's just whatever we can do to win the game. If that means spreading the ball around, that's spreading the ball around. They're not concerned with fantasy numbers, I'll say.
No, and I will say between Keenan Coleman and Khalil Shakir, it just depends on the game flow. If all three receivers are healthy and they have a starting lineup, Khalil Shakir is going to have good opportunity to score and collect some fantasy points. But he's whenever there's nobody there and he's the only one that's involved, he's not a wide receiver one. So I think when
Right.
Keenan Coleman is there, um, even if uh, Amari Cooper is not available, I think Shakir has the opportunity. But I think Keenan is gonna he has the prime opportunity to score too. He's a big body guy too. He can go up there, get the ball, make some plays. He is 53% owned. He's less owned than Tommy Callahan's, aka Khalil Shakir. Um, and they have some suspect defenses they got in the next couple weeks. But I think a pickup that I would feel more comfortable in playing would be a Keenan Coleman.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
I
agree
don't.
with that.
Yeah. I agree with every single thing you said. So what last name I would like to bring up? So we were talking about widely owned, and some of the Bills guys that we just mentioned weren't. It was just an interesting question. So last name I want to bring up is not widely owned, but I did not bring him into the probably owned but pick him up category. So Keenan Allen. Um, so he's available in about 30% of leagues. He had an amazing game. There's no way around it. I don't know if this kind of thing continues because he was basically droppable, basically the last 2 weeks before this. Does this continue? I mean, he's a great player when he's healthy. Caleb Williams seems to be stepping it up. Their offense seems to be better. If that's the case, is it worth it picking up Roma Dunze back again? Are we back to having that conversation? What
Well,
do you make of the Bears?
I mean, 15 targets is not something you're going to see. That is streaky. That's not something you're going to see every single week. He had 10 targets against Arizona, Keenan Allen, 15 targets against Minnesota, 8 and 6. I see him more in the 8 and 6 range in that offense every single week. I mean, that's kind of what you've been getting throughout the season. If you average it all out, he's getting about anywhere from 8 to 9 targets a week when he's healthy. Um, and I know again, Keenan Allen is higher in the target share, but I do believe that Roma Duze is getting the more popular fantasy relevant targets. He's not putting up crazy points, but if you need a player where he's a spot start, something like that, he's getting better play targets, I think. Um, so that's just my perspective on that. I would rather go and get the younger guy, Oduze, and if you are in a keeper league as well, Oduze could be an opportunity as a keeper potentially, depending on who you have on your roster for next year.
I agree with you, but relevancy for this year. First of all, this is what Keenan Allen does. He's a target machine. He's always been that way when he's healthy.
Yeah, he's always commanded a lot of targets, but I just think that I mean, you got DJ Moore on that roster too. I mean,
I know.
It's
it
just
seems like
so many.
There's mouths to feed.
Yeah, Cole Kmet. There's so much. There's so much. I
Do you
mean,
think
it's the pick of the litter right there.
I gotta ask, do you think Keenan Allen regrets making his decision to go to the Bears and leaving Justin Herbert? Because when he was on the Chargers, yeah, he would get 12 to 15 catches per game. The guy was a
I
PPR monster.
I don't think he regrets it. I mean, he may, but I mean, I think I don't even think it was his choice, right? I think he was just shipped there because
Yeah, I think
yeah,
okay, I
I
think you're
don't think
right.
he had a choice. I mean, because I remember, basically,
Yeah, they traded. You're
Herb
right.
and
They
Herbert was
traded
like,
for him.
"Yo, you just traded my dude. Like that was
Yeah,
his
they
guy."
traded for him. That's right.
It's like in Antonio Gates prime, just trading Antonio Gates out of nowhere. Like that shouldn't have happened, you know.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it also was, he was, I think he's almost in his contract year, right? So like um, he was re-signed, or he's on his last year of this contract, I think. You guys want to go ahead and I'll look that up, but
Yeah, sure. Well, it's pretty fortuitous that you would mention that. So, like we were saying earlier, we're recording this pre Monday Night Football, so we're not mentioning guys from Baltimore or LA that perhaps we could name, and there's definitely some wide receivers that maybe after the game might have fallen in this category. Some good options for that might have been. In the probably owned category might have been Quentin Johnston, depending on how his performance would have been. Maybe if there was an injury, I know Lad McConkey is going to be playing tonight. Maybe Josh Palmer might have been an option. And then on the Baltimore side,
Tommy's
um,
favorite.
yeah,
yeah.
maybe Rashad Bateman. Um, uh, oh my gosh, maybe
Deontay
Deontay
Johnson.
Johnson if he ever gets
So
involved.
so
But
Keenan
I
Allen
don't think that's ever going to happen. But
Keenan Allen signed in 2020 a 4-year extension, 80 million dollar extension, and his last year of the contract is this year. And obviously, with the trade, the Bears took on that contract. So this is his last year. I don't see him being a Bear again. I see him either, there could be retirement or going to play for another team.
maybe he wants to go get a championship
I could
somewhere.
see the Chiefs in his forecast next year for a championship
Ugh.
run.
That's possible.
Yeah,
There is
and honestly, I mean, you're still gonna have Dreads over there next year too.
yeah,
You'll still have
Hopkins.
Hopkins. So I mean,
There is a really deep dive that I want to mention real quick before we move on, and he
Oh, go
goes by
for
the
it.
name of Calvin Austin the third on
oof.
Pittsburgh.
He
I
had a
listen.
good game, but
Yeah,
man, you're
no,
gonna lose me on this one.
MVS the
I
third.
listen. But you can't. It's hard to ignore, especially if you're in a deep league and a dynasty league. Um, he just did this against the Cleveland Browns. Yeah, he went 3 for 78 and a touchdown. He plays Cleveland again in 2 weeks. He has got 3 touchdowns on the year, and he does have a couple fantasy games with 17 plus fantasy points.
I mean,
Yeah.
listen, if you really need to take a real shot at that, but I like the boldness. I mean, give it a go if you want.
That's
Um,
bold.
yeah.
It's a bold move, Cotton.
Let's move to some tight ends here.
Before
So,
actually, before we move on real
oh,
quick, I just want to say again, if we could, all our listeners, we appreciate everything you guys do for us in the community. If you could share, subscribe. Again, we are going to be dropping another video tomorrow. Um, you'll see it on Wednesday, most likely. It's going to be basically a week to review everything, that's going to be coming up. And we'll talk about some, betting opportunity and those elements. It's going to be a little bit, it's obviously going to be directed towards the fantasy community, but it's also going to be a little bit more broad when it comes down to actual full breakdowns.
yep. All right. So tight ends. We got a couple names here in the probably owned category, some of which that are going to aggravate me and Anthony to no end. One I'll leave to the end because I know we want to make a comment or two. So we still got Hunter Henry, who is still not he still performs. He's still doing well, even in the past game where it's not like New England was looking that great. He's still a better option than some of the other people that you trot out there. We got Zach Ertz, who had another great game, um, available in about 40-ish% of leagues, and then Jonnu Smith, the greatest receiver from Miami that you could ever hope for in your entire life, available in about 30% of leagues.
Mm-hmm.
If they're available, go ahead and pick them up. And then, so the last name that's in the probably owned category, it's probably worth its own 2-second conversation. Taysom Hill. So right before the bye that they just had, scores 40, 50 points, whatever format that you're in. He's not scoring 40 or 50 points every
No,
single
it's
week.
not happening again.
Right. But
But he's
Tommy's
scoring 30
point,
points.
well, to your point from earlier, he becomes necessary for the offense as their wide receivers continue to be down, as backup running backs continue to be down. He becomes necessary. Um, I would take him. I would not take him over, let's say, top tier tight ends at this moment, but I would definitely take him over trotting
No,
out whatever
no.
other nonsense we do.
I mean, honestly, I think out of the tight end landscape right now, all four of these guys are starting every single week now.
Right.
Taysom Hill, Henry, Ertz, and Smith. There is another guy, and this is going to cause a ruckus for Billy. Will Dissly is starting every single week in tight end rosters.
Right. Well, I didn't bring him up especially.
I know we haven't because he's general.
Because tonight's game. That's
I
why.
I know. But
right.
We're just talking in perspective for next week, moving forward, ad drops, all that stuff. He needs to be owned. There are some people that still could pick him up this week, today, right now, most likely because he's available potentially. So go out there, pick up your Will Dissly, and let's lock and load.
I know
five tight ends to
all
lock
right.
in your lineups, pending
right.
any injuries.
Right, well, I've been preaching Will Dissly for the last 4 weeks now. So
I'm on that.
Will Dissly.
Yeah, I'm on that horse with you, man. We're riding that thing. We're gonna ride it to the sunset.
Win you a fantasy championship. This guy could be a league winner here.
Yeah, Will Dissly Bear. Yeah. Let's move into some more widely owned guys, so I don't have to listen to the Dissly thing. So, if by some, and a lot of people just have issues like with whatever tight ends in their rosters. So I agree with Tommy. Luke's Schoonmaker, he's great if Ferguson's not there. He's a great pickup. He's available basically everywhere. He's awesome. After Luke Schoonmaker, though, in terms of a guy you could plug right in and get some points out of, the options are not that good. I know, Anthony, you're partial to Freiermuth. How do you compare Freiermuth to guys like Cole Kmet? I mean, and like, what do you think? Like,
I'd rather have Pat Freiermuth over Cole Kmet. Cole Kmet, I had such high hopes for him. I thought he was going to have a pretty consistent year, especially with Caleb Williams at the helm. And I feel like he would have been a more of a safety blanket for him, this year, and kind of help him with dink and dunk passes. So I thought he was going to eat PPR wise. I just see more consistency out of Pat Freiermuth. I mean, the guy's good for, at least 4 catches a game. His yardage isn't too high and the touchdowns aren't there. But if you're looking for a consistency factor, I think Pat Fryermuth over Cole Kmet for sure. And Russell
Well,
Wilson, has been throwing the ball good lately too.
I gotta be honest. I mean, I like Pat Fryermuth. He obviously signed that contract in the beginning of the year that gave him, give fantasy owners a little bit more hope and perspective that, there's going to be plays scripted for him and he's going to be in the direct trajectory of basically, having a nice season. Right now, I would spot start Noah Gray. The guy has 11 targets for 10 receptions. They're all valued targets in the red zone, 4 touchdowns. I don't believe that this is not going to stay consistent, especially how Mahomes has been playing the past 2 weeks, 3 weeks. I think they're going to be throwing the ball more consistently. I
Hmm.
think Noah Gray is now inside the 20, basically Travis Kelce. Travis Kelce is going to, it's like a running game right there. Like, you have your running backs that run inside the 20s. You have your running backs that run inside outside the 20s. I think Noah Gray is going to vulture touchdowns over Travis Kelce inside the 20s.
I think you're right. I think I agree with you 100%. And I think anybody who's watched this year, it Travis Kelce doesn't look the same that he looked.
No, no, Noah Gray looks like an elusive Travis Kelce. He looked, and Noah
Right.
Gray always looked good. He's going to be the next Travis Kelce. But
Right.
right
And
now, he's not commanding the defense is not commanding like double teaming or anything like that. Like he's getting open, he's making good plays. He's not having astronomical yards. He's not he doesn't have 200 yards in the past 3 weeks. He has 107 yards total, but those targets and those touchdowns are the valuable looks.
we ran out of time last week, but it's probably 2 seconds to just have this conversation about, and we could lump in Isaiah Likely into this. Very, very, very rarely. I can't think of one time, Tommy, that we've ever been excited about a second tight end on a team. And excited
Outside
might
of
not even be the right word.
outside of who we shall not speak of, Mr. Patriot anymore.
All right. I mean, that's from 14 years ago. But I mean, like, we never have this situation where you have a second tight end that A is going to have some standalone value, and B, it's a weird way to say it, but almost like handcuff value. I mean, there was a period last year where it was like if you're the Andrews owner, you had to have Likely. Now Likely is basically the second option, second or third pass catching option on the team, even when Andrews is on the field. And to
Yeah.
your point, Noah Gray is coming into the red zone. He's getting all these other targets, and Mahomes is now Mahomes. They're at the period of time where they have to put the game on Mahomes' back to go win. They're throwing it a lot more. I mean, these are two names and they're widely available. I They have standalone value, and if Andrews goes down, and Andrews is always injury prone, and if Kelce goes down, Kelce is a lot less injury prone, but now he's getting a lot older and he looks a lot worse. I mean, these are great options to have, and especially with some upside value.
Yeah, and I don't believe that Noah Gray is even going to be added this week. I mean, widely added. I
Right.
think he's going to be in. He
These are
might
ad
be.
drops. Don't burn
Yeah,
waiver priority
and
for this.
yeah, he might be somebody that you could just say, all right, well, I might be able to grab him because I just need a spot start next week or the following week, or again, he the catches he's getting is not like it's not relevant to with his yardage. It's not fantasy relevant,
Oh,
but the touchdowns is what we're looking
what's
at.
what's happening is Kelsey right now is getting the reception yards and
Hmm.
Gray is finishing it off, is
And
what's
that's what I
happening.
was, and that's what I was saying. He's the perspective of a running back working inside the 20s and a running back working outside the 20s. He's, basically Kelsey's doing the work to get there, but Noah Gray's getting open when it actually matters to put some points on the board.
I will say there was that one play on the first Noah Gray touchdown. Kelsey was open on that play too. It just happened to go to Gray on that one for
Yeah.
the 30-yard scamper.
But he looked for him. I mean, he went to him.
Yeah,
I
no, of
I, I
course, of
I
course.
definitely agree with the thrust of this. So one more name I want to bring up, which basically goes exactly in tune with what we were saying about basically Nick Westbrook-Akine and Tennessee in general. So Chigakonkwo, so he's available basically everywhere. Um, there was a period of time last year where Chigakonkwo was a big uh, free agent pickup. He was good for a couple weeks in a row. If we're excited about pass catchers in Tennessee because of that schedule, I don't see why he shouldn't be one of them. He had a pretty decent game. You could do worse. You guys agree?
What do you have? One catch for 70 yards and a touchdown this week? Uh, I mean, listen, the way the tight end landscape is right now, I'm not going to disagree with you there. I mean, you need a guy, and you need a guy to play.
I know.
Um,
I said it so smoothly. I was like, "Yeah, had a good game. I didn't want to like one catch, but
yeah,
I
no,
don't.
but it's still good for what 14 PPR points. So I mean, 14 points is 14 points. Get it how
That's
you can.
I'll tell you what. I'll make one prediction. If he has a even remotely a decent game, guaranteed he'll be top amongst our pickups for next week.
I agree with
Guaranteed.
that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
And he's got a soft schedule coming up though. He's got Washington and
that's what we're
Jacksonville his
saying.
next two matchups. So if you're looking for another smart start, you doesn't need to just play at tight end, especially week 14, because I know there's a lot of buys week 14. So it's worth a flyer.
Any other names we want to bring up before we get to our last segment here?
No, I think I'm good. Um,
All right. So we'll go to our last segment. So let me set this up. Very similar to what we did last time. We had a lot of fun with this. And
oh, and by the
but
way,
Tommy, who won? Who won that?
Anthony ran away with it.
Oh, did
Anthony
I?
ran away.
Yeah, yeah.
Nice job.
Anthony, I think it was by eight or 8 points. Billy, you came in second. You led me by I think it was 29 points, and I had 28 points.
Nice.
So,
Wow.
All right, so for everybody who
ugh.
doesn't, for everybody who's just joined us, or whoever doesn't know, what we started was we are doing a snake style draft, just 2 rounds of the only widely available quarterbacks and widely available defenses for us to start. Obviously, the rules are we have to have one quarterback and one defense. A lot of people are streaming quarterbacks and defenses, and that's how we roll. So the rule is the player has to be under 50% owned in both ESPN and in Sleeper. And that removes a lot of guys that would otherwise be up in this conversation because great, we'd all pick Lamar Jackson or something.
Mhm.
So we've got some interesting names. We've got some interesting defenses to talk about. So why don't we go? Let's go, Tommy,
No,
Anthony.
I went first last time.
Oh, you went
So,
first. All right, so
yeah,
let's Anthony won, so Anthony could get the first pick. We'll go Anthony, me, Tommy, and then we'll
perfect.
snake it back. Yeah, because we'll
All
do it in
right.
order that we did.
Oh, so I'm first now. The pressure's on.
Yes.
It is, and I know where
So you
you're
can.
going.
So the name, in case you're wondering, the names in the doc are all options there. All great
I'm
options.
listen. I'm gonna have to go
Well,
with Drake May again.
yeah,
Okay.
Billy, let's just say this. So there's Drake May, there's Derek Carr,
Right.
Jameis Winston, Will Levis, Bryce
Bryce
Young.
Young.
Those are your quarterback options, and then our defenses are Bills, Cowboys, and Seahawks.
Right, and I should have prefaced this by saying so. Yeah, those are the options that we have. Remember, of the options that are less than 50% in both leagues. Now, again, I know we're not talking about Lamar Jackson, but there's probably other names who are a little bit more probably owned who might be better options for your team.
Hmm.
We're not mentioning them here because they're probably owned. That's kind of the point. Bo Nix, Justin Herbert, et cetera, et cetera.
Yep, yep.
So Mr. Perez has chosen Drake May again, rocking and rolling. So what do you think, Tommy?
You go.
Oh yeah, that's right. I came in second. So um,
You just didn't want to go.
I'm gonna go with
It's tough.
I'm gonna go with Buffalo home against San Francisco. Uh, so Buffalo is widely available. They're
No
playing against Brandon
takebacks.
Allen, and I'll go with Buffalo.
All right. I will take the Cowboys
Okay.
going against the Giants, who look like I don't know. And the Cowboys defense played great against the Redskins or Commanders or Washington, however you want to call them. So I think that they shall feast on Thanksgiving Day against the Giants. Unfortunately, that's going to be a long day. And quarterback wise, I shall. This would be crazy. Will Levis.
That's not crazy. That's
Well, oh,
might have
well,
been where I would have went.
over Derek Carr or I mean Bryce Young looked good, but I'll take Will Levis.
Yeah. All right. So on my way back here, um, So my options are Derek Carr home against the Rams, Jameis at Denver, and Bryce Young home against Tampa Bay. I am inclined. I would have, all else being equal, I would have happily picked Derek Carr. The problem is he gets vultured by Taysom Hill for 90-yard pass or whatever it is. I'm gonna go with. You know what? Let's go volume. I'm gonna go Jameis.
Yikes.
And that leaves a great defense for Anthony. And explain why it's such a good defense, Anthony.
Well, I guess I'm taking the Seahawks against the Jets this week. But listen, the Seahawks just came off a very impressive showing against the Cardinals. Held them to just 6 points, and that's with Kyler Murray at the helm. Um, so I expect them to have another good week this week against the Jets offense, who's just in complete shambles right now. And we don't even know if Aaron Rodgers is actually playing this week, too. It could be Tyrod Taylor starting for all we know, with the rumors going around. So you know what? I feel confident in them. I think they can. I think they can do the job. I mean, they scored 19 points against Arizona.
They really shut down Arizona too.
They did. They did a great job. So you know what? I have full confidence in them also shutting down the Jets offense, but that's not hard to do these days.
And it's almost guaranteed that they like the latest news today. Tyrod Taylor is going to be playing quarterback. It's pretty so. I mean,
did that officially come out today?
It was like it's pretty much. They didn't announce it, but I would be very surprised if Rodgers plays.
Yeah, I think at this point, especially because they're not in the playoff hunt anymore,
right?
And he doesn't want to play with the Jets next year. Might as well just save him instead of getting hurt.
Well, yeah. I mean, that was a good conversation, guys. Again, to our fantasy community, if you guys could share, subscribe, like, share with your family. Remember, we will be dropping another video tomorrow or Wednesday, depending on what time, what time we are able to get this done. Will be dropped. Be on the lookout. We'll be, posting it on all social media so you guys get some views. This video obviously is something that's relevant for us to basically get out to the community quick so you guys can utilize it for ad drops. Again, we did this video before Monday Night Football. Enjoy the game tonight. You guys have anything else?
No, sir. Good luck, everybody. And let's go MVS.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night, guys.